last week, we left our friend Mr. Scrooge just waking up and coming out of the ghost of Christmas yet to come. The phantom, remember, he was very scared. And this was right on the heels of the other three that he had been visited by, his dead business partner, Jacob Marley, who warned him, change your ways before it's too late. And the ghost of Christmas past and the ghost of Christmas present. We ended last week with the question, can he change his ways? Will he? Can we change our ways? My talk today is, it's a wrap. Hallelujah, 2020 is almost over, right? Anybody else feel that way? Are we almost done with this one? Yeah, sweep it under the rug. But what will 2021 hold for us? What will it bring in the new year? I'm already seeing people beginning to celebrate. Oh, it's over, 2020's over, 2021, yes, bring it on. But what is it going to hold for us? As I've contemplated the new year this week, for our center, for myself, and just the transition that we're facing, I find myself more curious than celebratory. More curious. Looking back, December of 2019. Remember that? Seemed so far away. But really, it was just a short 12 months ago. But so much has happened. So much has happened. Looking back on what we've actually experienced, I didn't see it coming. I don't know about you. I didn't see it coming. So if anything, 2020 has taught me to be more present in the moment. When I started the year, my contemplation was, my word for the year was sustainability. And I didn't like that word. I kept saying, no, that's not it. No, that's not it. No, that's not. You know how you argue with spirit? Anybody else do that? Yeah, once in a while. And finally it's like, okay, it's my word, I get it. And it made a lot of sense once I got into accepting. And I've added 2 more words this year, though. Pivot, flexible. Pivot, flexible, right? Because we've had to do a lot of that, haven't we? We've had to do a lot of that. Looking back over 2020 is a little bit like Scrooge looking back over the ghost of Christmas past. We're looking back into our past. Now, I don't want to suggest that 2021 is the ghost of Christmas yet to come. Let's not go there. Let's not go there. But we do know that what we're thinking about today does affect what our Christmas of the future will look like, what our December, what our 2021 will look like, right? Because we know that our thoughts impact how our life is. And this is really the point of A Christmas Carol. As I've read through the story and analyzed it more, I guess, than just watching the movie, I realized that really is the point of this story, is a story of transformation. And that's what the science of mind teaches, is that this is possible, that we can transform our lives. And we have the power to do that in our minds, in order to create a better experience for us than perhaps what we're experiencing right now. So let's check in with our buddy Scrooge and see what he's up to now that all of the ghosts have gone away. He's just waking up, as I said, from that visit of the ghost of Christmas yet to come, and he's thrilled, excited, he's happy, he's amazed, he's jubilant. So he jumps out of bed, he throws open the windows, he yells out in the street, "What day is it?" Because he has no idea. He's been having all these ghostly visits, and he doesn't know if it's been a year or a moment. And there's a little boy in the street, and he goes, "Dude, it's Christmas Day." He's like, "Oh, good, I didn't miss it. It only took one night for all of that. It seems like it took an eternity." He says, "Young man, do you know where the poulter is?" That's a poultry place. He says, of course I do. He goes, go over there and buy the biggest turkey they've got and bring the guy back with you. And I'll give you some money and I'll pay for the turkey and we'll be good to go. So the little boy comes back. Scrooge has gotten dressed in his finest attire. He tips the little boy. He pays for the turkey. He pays for the cab for the guy to take the turkey all the way out to Bob Cratchit's house. Scrooge? Okay. So he's now walking down the street and he's giddy and joyful and greeting everybody, Merry Christmas. You can imagine their surprise. It's like, what's gotten into him? It's Christmas. Merry Christmas, Mr. Scrooge. Well, he sees the guys that had come in to his office the day before on Christmas Eve that had asked him for donations for their charity. And he calls them over. They're a little reluctant because he wasn't very nice to them the day before, but they went over and they said yes. And he gave them a generous donation, making up for all of the years of his arrears of not making donations. Imagine their surprise. Imagine their surprise at this large donation. Now, during this whole adventure outside, he's walked by his nephew Fred's house a dozen times, wanting to go ring the bell, but he's scared to do so, and he finally gets up the nerve, and he runs up and he rings the bell. And the housemaid opens the door, and he asks to be let in. She lets him in, and he goes into the dining room, and he opens the door, and he's greeted with warm, welcome, loving hearts and arms, and the nephew Fred just welcomes him, and his wife welcomes him, and all of their friends welcome him into their home. What a curious change of attitude. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? So unlike this character that we've gotten to know all month long, Mr. Scrooge, Mr. Bah Humbug, Christmas should be done away with, and anybody that believes in it. Remember him saying that? So we have to ask, is transformation like this possible? Or is this really just a fairy tale? Ernest Holmes, the founder of Centers for Spiritual Living and the author of The Science of Mind, which is the philosophy that we teach from, he says this is possible. Transformation is possible. He tells us we are told to be renewed in mind by the Spirit and to put on the new man, which is created in true holiness. The Science of Mind teaches how to accomplish this. The mind is the creative factor within us, and when the mind takes its pattern after the Spirit, it automatically renews the outer man after true holiness or wholeness within. Now, you've heard me say here, successful living from the inside out. We change, we transform, we embody from the inside to see that manifested in form on the outside. You may be familiar with the Bible statement, as within, so without. As within, so without. Holmes goes on to say, whatever the mind holds to and firmly believes in forms a new pattern of thought within its creative mold, as whatever thought is held in the mind tends to take outward form in new creation. This is the secret, and the only secret, to the creative law of mind. Ernest Holmes. I want to take you back to our kindness challenge. Remember last month, we did the kindness challenge all month. And I know that some of us in this room, as well as some of us on virtual church today, have had lifelong relationships transformed by that practice. And that's what we're talking about here. Because the practice, if you remember, was to think something nice about your person, say something nice to them, tell someone else you said something, that they did something nice, right? And have this whole process of the inner and the outer, the inner and the outer. We had 3 ways of doing that all month, 3 ways of doing it for 30 days, right? So there was transformation that was occurring through the renewing of our minds last month as we did this practice. And that is the practice of the science of mind. So it was a beautiful practice that we had all month with our kindness challenge. And apparently this is what happened to Scrooge. Apparently this is what happened to him. His mind was renewed by the visits with the spirits, past, present, and yet to come. If you think about those visits, the past, the present, the yet to come, those were vignettes, if you will, of times in his life. Let's go back to the past. He was shown himself as a boy in boarding school. The ghost didn't go, now this is when you were in boarding school, and this is what happened, and this is how you felt, and this is where you were, and that wasn't the process, was it? They just went, and he looked and he said, oh, I remember this. I remember that. So he has the opportunity to look with his adult mind, his adult eyes and heart, and see himself as a boy and those experiences and transform them, renew his mind about them. The same thing with Bell, the same thing with Mr. Fezziwig. All of his experiences, he was able to transform them and renew his mind about them in that visit of the Ghost of Christmas Past. Ghost of Christmas Present. Same thing. The big jovial spirit, right? Took him around and showed him in current time what Christmas today is like. What did Scrooge think Christmas today was? Bah humbug, right? Bah humbug. That was the story he had made up about Christmas present. But the ghost showed him different. And he went, huh, that looks like fun. Those people are having a lot of fun. Can we stay a little bit longer? I'd like to watch the game. Oh, they're singing. I'd like to listen to the music. So it took away his bah humbugness, didn't it? It took away, and the ghost didn't tell him and beat him over the head with it. He just showed him. He just showed him. And Scrooge was able to begin to drop that bah humbugness and believe in the joy of Christmas. And then the ghost of the Christmas yet to come, he didn't show him what the future was. He showed him what a possibility was based on his behavior up until that point. And this ghost didn't even talk, right? He just pointed. So that is how Scrooge was transformed by the renewing of his mind through those experiences. And that same is available to us as well. Now, Scrooge did not stop with Christmas Day. He did not stop with his transformation with Christmas Day. Sometimes, people do good things on a holiday, whatever that, maybe it's on Hanukkah and they're going to do something really nice. And then they become Scrooge the next day. He didn't do that. The next day, Boxing Day, so called because that's the day when the rich folks boxed up things for the poor folks. And it's also the day that the servants got off. In the big households, the servants had to work on Christmas Day because the family was all in residence and they had to do their duties and things. But the day after, the family let the servants off to go back home and have Christmas with their families. But Bob Cratchit was an employee, so he had to go to work. And he was running late. And he knew it. Scrooge expected him to be late because he knew he'd been having a lovely time with his family on the holiday. So Scrooge got to the office extra early just to be sure he was there first. And sure enough, here comes Bob, 15 minutes past the hour, and he sneaks in a little bit late. When you're late, you kind of sneak in quiet and you want to get busy with it. It looks like you've been there for a while. Well, he's trying to do that, and Scrooge barks at him as usual. He goes, Bob, you're late. Bob goes, yes, sir, I know, sir. I'm so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry, sir. And Scrooge goes, well, don't let it happen again. And he runs over to him. He pats him on the back, and he says, I'm going to give you a raise. Bob kind of goes, really? Okay. And he says, and I'm going to come over later this afternoon, and we're going to sit down, we're going to have a drink, and we're going to talk about how I can be of aid to your family in the future. Bob's backing up now, and he's kind of grabbing a ruler, and he's thinking, maybe I should call the authorities and get a straitjacket for this guy, because he's lost his marbles, right? This is a totally different guy from the guy he had seen 2 days ago. But Scrooge continues to be jolly and nice and happy and kind, and tells Bob to build up the fire, put some more coal on, and by the way, order some more coal so we can always keep the office warm. That's not Scrooge. That's not Mr. Miserly Scrooge that we've been dealing with all this time, right? So have you ever experienced that sort of change in your life? Perhaps overnight, perhaps over time, where there was a transformation, a renewing of your mind that resulted in some altered behavior. Or maybe it was someone else that you experienced their change and you thought they maybe had lost their marbles. Yeah? And this could be caused by moving away. Sometimes a change in an environment. We change who we are. Maybe it's the first time you moved away from home and moved away to college or school or moved out on your own. And you began to become a new person. You went back home and it wasn't quite the same. You'd been transformed by your new experiences. Or maybe it was leaving a relationship or a job, and that change of environment had an effect of renewing and changing our mind. Maybe it's changing a lifestyle, giving up a habit, perhaps, that we've had for a long time. We give that up, and it changes and transforms us from the inside out. All of this is very possible. And the science of mind, of course, teaches us how to do this. That's what the whole book is about, isn't it? It's transformation, transforming ourselves. The challenge is sticking with it, right? Anybody else maybe not been able to stick with it at some point, somewhere along the line? Yeah, it's a tough thing, isn't it? It's a tough thing. We know from New Year's resolutions, if you've ever made one, and it, maybe you make the same one every year and it still hasn't happened yet. Sometimes we aren't able to stick with them. We may be full of willpower in the beginning, but as Holmes tells us, willpower is the short burst of energy. It's for the sprint. It's not the marathon. It's what helps us stay focused on it, but it's not what's going to carry us through the long haul. Holmes tells us clearly the secret to creation, the secret to doing this, to hold firmly in our mind and to believe in our hearts. Holding firmly in our mind is where our meditation practice comes in. It helps us to stay focused. In our hearts is where our belief is. It's where our knowingness is. It's where our being able to step into that transformation, that which we want to see changed, and live from that perspective. That is the belief. That's how we get there. I was hearing someone the other day talk about how when we talk about the good that we want to bring into our life, it may be lukewarm. But when we talk about how it's not here yet, we get all emotional and excited about it, right? That's where our power is in those emotions and that excitement. We've got to get as excited about the thing that's not here yet that we're calling in. That's the power. That's the power. So this is a basic idea in the science of mind. We've talked about it before. My beloved music stand that's in my office and this gorgeous podium that's now been manifested here was a thought, and now it's a form. Look at that. Amazing. Amazing how that happens. But that's the idea. It comes from thought to form. Imagine that there is an invisible substance, the substance of creation, that all of which is created from, is pouring down on you at all times, And you have a series of cups or molds that you're catching that substance in. Whatever that mold is what's then going to be manifested in form in your life. Imagine that. Can you see that with me? Can you see that invisible substance with me? Now imagine that you are envisioning abundance and prosperity and wealth and money and a house and whatever that is. You're envisioning that prosperity. And that just keeps filling and keeps filling and keeps filling and circulating and filling with such ease and such grace. Now imagine you may be somebody that doesn't quite believe that. You believe that it never sticks around, that there's never enough, that it's not yours to have, that there's not enough for everybody. You believe in some lack and some limitation. That bucket looks more like a sieve. That substance is just running through because that's the mold that you're asking it to fill. right? So it's whatever the form of our thoughts is, that is the mold that we hold, that infinite substance is continuing to flow into. That's the process. That's the process. And what our friend Mr. Scrooge did is he changed his bucket. He changed his bucket from bah humbuggy to joy and celebration. And that was the mold that he was catching now. That was the mold he had created. And that was what's now being outpictured in his life. Dickens tells us in the end of the story that it stuck for Scrooge, that it worked for Scrooge. He said, Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. Dickens wanted his audience to know that Scrooge was successful in his transformation. And we can be too. We can be too. As we prepare ourselves to turn the calendar page from 2020 to 2021, stepping with anticipation into the new, into the good, into better perhaps than where we have been in 2020. Maybe we're looking for a healing of consciousness on a global scale, for our politics, our political environment, for our economy globally, for health, self-worth, values, virtues, peace, financial freedom. A world that works for all. But mostly a return to love, because that seems to be what's missing. I have a friend that reminded me this week that we can choose to look on 2020 as with disdain for what it brought us, or we can choose to look on it with love. She says love wins. Love wins. And I have a tendency to agree when we allow it. When we allow it. I don't know if you saw it this morning, Apple News had a headline, "The Year in Good News." I didn't have a chance to read it, but I saved it. I want to go back and read that. I want to read the good news of this year. And remember that. Remember that. Remember the things that happened. 2020 is a story of our creativity, of our resilience as human beings, as spiritual beings, of our ability to pivot, to be flexible, to be creative, to make things work anyway, in spite of it, right? In spite of it. So we can look at it as a work of art, or we can look at it as a disaster. The choice is ours. This week coming up, this week between the year, between Christmas and New Year's, this is always a weird week, isn't it? It's kind of just odd. And it's a great time, though, to reflect on the past, present, and the future. It's a wonderful time for that. And so this week, I'm going to invite you to look at your life and see where love won for you in 2020. Where did love win in my life in 2020? So today, let's wrap up our month, and some may say our year of Scrooge, and look at our spiritual practices. As Diane said, if you haven't signed up for the Mindful Monday, you can do so in the lobby. If you're online and you'd like to sign up, just send an email to the church website and we'll get you on the list for tomorrow. And today I want to share something a little different from our usual spiritual practices. And there are actually 11 of these, and in the interest of time, I'm only going to give you 4 today. And the Mindful Monday email will have the whole list in that if you're signed up for it. And it's called Year-End Resolutions. Year-End Resolutions. And these were published in 2004, originally by Reverend David Alt, from used to be the senior minister at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. So consider these contemplations for your week. Number 1, did I express love this year? Did I express love this year? The kind of love that doesn't announce itself in flashy circumstance or structured conditions, but an authentic, quiet, internal love. The kind of love that bubbles to the surface when I gaze at another with understanding. A love that places me in their shoes, granting freedom from judgment and deepening my compassion. A philanthropic love that expresses because it simply feels compelled to, because it knows there is more than enough and everyone can benefit. If not, then I resolve to be and to do better in my authentic loving. Number 2, did I forgive this year? The kind of forgiveness that cracks open my heart, peeling away one more layer of righteous indignation, thus allowing my soul to breathe. The kind of forgiveness that loosens my clenched fists held high at a situation so that I don't enter into the next one with guarded mistrust. The kind of forgiveness that comprehends there's a difference between understanding a behavioral choice and condoning it. If not, then I resolve to be and to do better in my forgiving. Number 3, did I share my good this year? The kind of sharing that comes from the pure joy of seeing another succeed, not from what I think they will or can do for me in return. Did I tithe back to where I am spiritually fed, transformed, and inspired? Did I practice random acts of kindness and give my time, talent, and treasure, realizing that my goal is a part of a never-ending wellspring, that my good is a part of a never-ending wellspring that cannot run dry, whose source is and always will be the infinite wellspring of the divine? If not, then I resolve to be and do better in my sharing. Did I pray this year? The kind of prayer that is spoken not to God, but as God. Prayer that affirms rather than beseech, are pregnant with knowing rather than bloated with doubt. Did I make my everyday activities a prayer, realizing that every thought I think carries with it the responsibility of an effect on the world? Did I remember how truly powerful my own prayer actually is, and that by simply devoting myself to the practice of it, I become the change? If not, then I resolve to be and do better with praying. Did I do all these things because deep down inside I fully understand how precious I am, and that each of these sacred practices reminds me how I'm held in the light as a perfect idea? Did I know that there is nothing that I can ever say, nothing that I can ever do that will separate me from the love of God? If for any reason I forgot my divinity this year, then I resolve to be and to do better in my knowing of it, to fully understand and embody the truth that it is done unto me as I believe. And I believe in the power of good for me, for you, and for all. It's Reverend David Alt, who is now the founder of Kaleidoscope Child Foundation. These are wonderful questions for our contemplation this week in between, and to consider our present, reflect on the past year, and plan our year yet to be. I'll close today with a quote from Ernest Holmes. Now, he reminds us, there are going to be changes in our lives from hour to hour and day to day, and we cannot escape them. It is the nature of the universe. Let us accept change, make the most of it, and capitalize on it. The action of the law never changes, but the direction of the action is always up to us. Life can become a glorious adventure, increasingly filled with more of everything good as we gradually or suddenly come to change our pattern of thinking so that it embraces more of those good things. May 2021 bring us all more of those good things. Peace on earth, goodwill to all. Happy New Year. So it is. Would you join me in a prayer as we close out our time. How good it is that we can come together once again in celebration of this thing called life, the celebration of God, the celebration of source, of spirit, of love, of life, of peace and harmony. As we recognize that all of this is God, the Spirit, universal energy, presence, whatever we call it, we know it as that which is what we are. We're each an individualized point in the mind of God, individualized expression, spark of the divine, however we want to equate ourselves in it. All of it is here, now present, right now, in, through, and as not only me, but each one of us as that individualized expression of the whole. We are within it, right here, right now, not separate from it in any way, but fully expressing as much of the divine as we choose to express through us and as us, right here, right now. And as I know this, I know for each of us, as we step into that realization, that remembrance of who we are as the divine presence, we recognize our access to that infinite substance and supply of life, of that creative power, that creative substance that is, and we but hold our bucket out for filling, for more love, more peace, more health, more joy, more harmony, for prosperity, for whatever it is that individually and uniquely desires to be expressed through us. We repair any holes in our buckets, in our molds, and we allow them to be completely formed in the presence of reality, of our beliefs, as we believe. That's what that means, as we believe. I know for anyone that has anything on their heart today, as they bring it into the consciousness of this prayer, that whatever it is healed. That if there is something that needs to be known, that it is revealed with ease and with grace. That if there is financial flow needed, that it is flowing already to and through them and as them. From unexpected sources. The one source, many channels, one source. I know that whatever is needed and necessary is supplied right here, right now. And how grateful I am for this knowing. How grateful to know that we are surrounded by this love and this infinite presence and this power and this substance. All ours for accessing. Because it's who and what we are. And so with great gratitude, great joy, I release this into the action of the one mind, the activity of mind, knowing that it is already done. It is already made manifest. And we affirm this manifestation together by saying, and so it is.